Hello, I'm Michael Mayer from VocalWisdom.com, and in this Masterclass podcast, I'm going to talk about recovering your voice after allergies or illness. This topic came to me because of what I have recently had to deal with. The reason we haven't seen each other in so long is first I got a new office space here in our home, and took some time kind of getting everything moved over and situated and figured out how I was going to set up to do my recordings. And finally got that figured out. And then for much of the spring, I was dealing with a lot of allergies. And for me, my allergies show up as kind of very much the same thing as a cold. It even seems to be like an upper respiratory infection, a URI, and it goes through the whole sequence of, nose, throat, larynx, and takes a good week to sometimes 2 weeks for it to go through the whole cycle and clear out before I really have much of a voice left or get my voice back. And I went through that twice. In the course of April and May, so it took a long time, and then so I'm back, and I want to talk about how we can address that issue and effectively recuperate after having the voice go through that it's kind of like a mutation from the swelling and of the infection. So having some idea of how to come out of that most effectively can really pay off in the long run. There is a certain danger even from simple colds. I've written about this in the past, but and in general, it's safe to sing with a cold unless the inflammation is actually in the larynx itself, and then it's probably a good idea to avoid any real significant vocalizing. Sometimes we may be in a situation where we have to give a performance when we're less than 100%, and then we just need to really be skillful. That's why that's one of the reasons why it's really important for us to develop our skills, become as familiar with our instrument as we can, so that when we're not 100%, we can deal with it. So, what are the dangers? If we sing with the inflammation, we can damage the soft tissue. Remember that the voice itself is really just soft tissue. It's more delicate than the skin that we feel. I always kind of think of, if you look underneath your tongue, you can kind of see a basic idea of what the vocal folds are made out of. The pink underneath the tongue there. That's basically the same thing as what the mucous membrane is, the mucosa inside the larynx. Essentially the same. Obviously it's not exactly, but it gives you an idea. So it's delicate, but it's also very resilient. So we need to be intelligent. So once we've gone through the infection, the swelling, the recovery, what often happens is that the voice remains sort of heavy. I don't know if that's something that's familiar to you. Maybe it is. Oftentimes after, even though the voice is not technically being affected by the illness anymore, oftentimes it will still feel kind of heavier than normal. That could be often what I feel like that is because of because of what it's gone through, it stays a little bit slack. And so the danger that I see is if we just go straight into our full singing right after being sick, we risk developing some poor habits that can be detrimental to the voice in the long run. So we can kind of teach ourselves to sing too heavy as a normal thing because the condition of the voice is less elastic and less flexible. So what I always like to do is really take the, if you're familiar with my sequence of practice, you know that the first thing I like to do is work with what I call the little voice. And this is just a really gentle vocalization. Ooh, it's head voice that's very calm and soothing and gentle. Has a certain childish sort of quality to it. And what I try to accomplish with that is just kind of accessing the pure vibration of the voice without any effort. And notice, if you experiment with this, you'll notice that it doesn't really require very much breath energy either. It's very calm, and if you use too much breath, it's such a gentle vocalization that if you use too much breath, even just a little bit too much, it'll just blow right through it. So I use this vocalization to kind of condition ourselves to finding that balance where where the vibration of the vocal cords is right in balance and equal to the breath energy. And doing it so quiet makes it, in my experience, makes it easier to find that balanced relationship. The voice and the breath need to have a very equal sort of relationship. We can't have too much physical, and that becomes very muscular. And we can't have too much air, too much breath, So a lot of the flow phonation advocates end up being out of balance in the direction of the breath. A lot of untrained singers are out of balance in the direction of the voice, in the direction of the physical and the muscles. So we need to release the muscles, and that's what I use just sighing for, to release the muscles, and then start finding that balance by coordinating the breathing, releasing the breath in a nice, slow, smooth way. So we're not propelling the breath. Sometimes we'll notice if we observe somebody using a sigh as an exercise, they often will be, it's not unusual to notice that they're using the sigh in a propulsive way. They're making the breath come out fast. That if you put the voice on top of that kind of breath gesture, you're going to be pushing. That's not balanced. So what I like to do is use the sigh to release, but very slow and smooth, and then using that gentle vocalization to find that nice, gentle, easy vocalization, easy balance in the breath and the voice, and then what we do is bring that all the way down, and feel how it starts to inform, it starts to educate the low voice. And there's how my low voice should feel, very gentle, very easy, not propelling the breath out where I'm pushing through the voice, and not where there's a lot of muscular contractions going on in and around the larynx. So that helps us achieve the elastic condition of the voice that is really its most optimal. Ah, 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 ooh, ah, ah. And so that for me is now see, that's important just in general across the board. But when we're coming back after being sick, of having some kind of, swelling and changes in the voice, especially if you have had laryngitis, or if the voice has felt thick, when you come out of that, it's going to retain that heaviness and that thickness until we vocalize it out. One of the best ways, in fact, to reduce swelling in the voice is pure balanced vibrations, pure and balanced vocalization. So doing this, which is a very thin, elastic type of vibration, vocalizing like that is going to kind of move any kind of residual swelling or whatever in the tissue. It's going to move that out. But if we go straight to ah, then we're going to risk forcing the voice and overworking it, and then that will turn into a habit. Very often that will turn into a habit, and then we'll start to wonder why we're having to work so hard to make the voice work. It traces back to the last time you were sick. Okay, so kind of a routine that I would recommend is I actually like to take this. We kind of generally associate head voice with the high voice, and it does to a certain degree. But I like to take this more in the middle, upper middle. And so, like, even if you start, often for a long time, I would always start this like around. I'd always start this around E natural. But sometimes I even like to start this C. This is F major, C down to F in the middle. For females, I'll start this even like around G or A. So on a D major. So for a female voice, this is like right in the middle of the middle range, which is a little bit more of a stretch for me as a male singer, but for a female, that's really right in the heart of that what I call the female range, right? Because you're above the transition, you're not in your chest voice, and it's not real high, so it's not real high head voice. And just conditioning that easy vocalization. And the key here is to not just allow it to be breathy. Ooh. Try to find a true vibration. Ooh. And that doesn't require just to clarify, this doesn't require any kind of muscular stiffening or squeezing. Ooh. The vocal cords will come together as a response to your intention to say something. So the reason that they don't is because we're saying it with a breath-oriented attitude. Very often what we have is hey there, how are you doing? We have a completely breath-oriented approach to our vocalization. But if we just stay relaxed, and then hey, and then just say whatever it is we're saying. If we're saying say that. If we're saying say that. And that will stimulate the voice into action. So so starting in a comfortable range. For the males, I would start probably, around D or E flat. For females, I'd start around G or A. And work your way up. And only go as high as you can still keep the vibration pure. Very often, usually, you will reach a point where either you can't keep the vibration, or ooh, it will squeeze. Neither of those is actually a vocal issue. Well, under the surface they're a vocal issue because the vibration can't stay engaged. But neither of those things are the voice. They are like when it squeezes, that's not the voice squeezing, that's the throat. That's the swallowing muscles around the voice. So only go as high as you can keep the vibration pure. And then for what I like to do is go up to wherever that happens and then start doing an octave arpeggio down. And the idea with this is to start bringing this back down through the middle range. For males, bringing it back from the high range down through the middle to the low. And for females, to bring it from, if you were able to comfortably go into the high range. Now, in general, what I'm calling middle range is E to E. Females, E to E. And low is below that, and high is above that. So if you can comfortably get above the upper E as a female, and then change to the octave, and that will exercise the voice back down through the middle. And if you keep going, it'll bring it into your female low range. Ooh. And that the idea is to try to keep the same basic condition, right? So if I go into my low range, and starting that low, this is a C, starting that low in this light, quiet head voice requires a lot of restraint, because if you let it can easily break into my raw voice. So I have to really kind of breathe and not restrict, but kind of really coordinate so that I don't just let the breath out of control. We want to release just what's necessary to feed the vibration of the voice. And it's going to be really quiet because it's low in that register, and that's kind of a principle. The voice gets louder when it's high in a register, and it gets quiet when it's low in a register. And that's why understanding how registers overlap is so important, to be able to have a full range of expression in terms of dynamics and pitch. So if I do this, that's giving me a feeling of what my low voice should feel like, because I don't want to disconnect it, overproduce it, or make it heavy. See, I can also make extra muscle into and that closes the throat. So it's important that the airway stays open. What I was talking about with the sighing, to feel everything is released and open. And also, I'm going to talk about this in a different class, really having good flexibility of the jaw. If you don't stretch the jaw enough, I can't really get into this quiet head voice. So I like to stretch the jaw. I like to practice stretching the jaw as much as I can. See, even on this is on a little ooh, I've got the jaw stretched as far as it goes. So that I don't have any throat muscles trying to control the voice. And it's absolutely critical. And like I said, I'll talk about that in a different video. But work that through your whole range. Stay free so that the registration can change. Always allow registration to change however it wants. Especially when you're quiet. It changes more noticeably. That's why, again, if we're singing full right away, we'll cover up those minute adjustments that are so critical for the voice. Okay? So experiment with that. Even if you're healthy, even if you haven't been sick, experiment with that and see how it applies. The whole premise is to kind of use that as sort of a foundation and a guide for your full singing. Because if you establish ooh, and then you have ah, then you have then you have your full singing on a very elastic, effortless sort of production. Okay, so this is, you know, this might be a little bit of skimming, just kind of introductory, sort of skimming over the surface of this topic, but I think this is the key, the key aspect that is so easily overlooked. You know, everything else grows out of this, and then we start getting into more of our normal, you know, our normal vocal production things that we're learning in other classes or that you already know. So this is the particular aspect that may not be as obvious and can really open up new conditions. Even when you're singing in your familiar way, if you establish this and use this this strategy as kind of a precursor, as sort of a preliminary to your normal vocalization, you may notice some very different experiences when you start using your voice as you normally do, because you're coming from a different condition. All right, so let me know if you have any other questions in the comments, or leave comments or observations as well. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be back. I hope we can keep our familiarity together. All right, we'll talk again soon. Bye.